What if understanding anxiety and panic attacks is not enough to beat it? For a long time I believed that if I just learned enough about anxiety, if I became aware of its existence and its causes, it would eventually disappear. But knowledge alone didn't change much. The real change started only when I began taking action. Welcome back, or just welcome if this is your first time here. My name is Luka and this is part 7 of my anxiety story. In this video I'll talk about the moment when I realized something important. It is not enough to simply learn a lot about our enemy, although that is certainly the first and essential step. To ultimately defeat it, or to overpower it to the point where there is no battle at all, we must create a solid plan and strategy and then truly begin with active preparations. So, how do I stand on my own 2 feet again? How do I run freely without fear? All of us secretly hope that our problems will solve themselves, that someone will appear with the magic wand and make everything disappear. We just need to be patient and it will happen. And yes, sometimes life really does work that way. Sometimes someone unexpectedly helps you. Sometimes a problem gets resolved by someone else. Sometimes time slowly erases things. But the truth is, situations that get solved like that are actually very rare. When it comes to anxiety and panic attacks, you can be 100% sure of one thing. They will not disappear on their own. And if you do nothing, the situation will most likely only get worse. So, if we want to win the lottery, we first have to buy a ticket. That's when the first steps of self-help begin. And that's exactly what I did. My psychiatrist gave me advice and guidance on how to live with anxiety and panic attacks. How to slowly expose myself to the things that scared me. How to face those fears step by step. And I actually put many of those tips into practice. When my mind finally felt free enough to move forward, my real self-help journey began. The first step was reading books about anxiety and panic attacks. I intentionally keep these two together because in my case they were like a perfect love couple. I wanted to understand my enemies better and find multiple ways to deal with them. At the same time, around that period, YouTube started filling up with all kinds of mental health gurus. Some of them had a really great advice. How to overcome panic attacks and various self-help methods for those kinds of situations. And honestly, I found many of their tips and ideas fascinating and useful. Some things and explanations were already familiar and logical to me, as I believe they are to most of you watching this. But you know how sometimes you keep something you already know in some forgotten corner of your brain, in the irrelevant section. Then you get thrilled when someone else tells you that same thing or reveals it like some grand wisdom. And then you might actually accept it and start applying it. But as someone else's brilliant advice. That is actually the experience we get when learning from books or videos. And now we arrive at the most important part of the whole process: action. What happens if your progress is based only on reading and listening? We keep discovering new ideas, tips, and methods. We get excited again and again by brilliant insights from other people. But after a while, we start asking ourselves, if I have learned so much about anxiety and panic attacks and all the tips on how to overcome them, why don't I feel better? The answer is very simple. If you don't apply the knowledge you have, it is completely useless. And that applies to any knowledge we acquire but don't use. But there is another important thing. Just like a specific medicine doesn't work the same for everyone, not every method for overcoming these unpleasant situations will have the same effect. Basically, we have to find what works for us. But is there something that can work for everyone from the very start? Something like a solid foundation upon which we can build everything else? There certainly is. And I will be talking about that as we go along in the upcoming videos. Now, let me give you another comparison about anxiety. Imagine you are a small, skinny kid, and on your way to school, or in the park, or even inside the school, there is a bully who keeps bothering you. Slowly, you start to hate going to school. You stop enjoying the park. You stop enjoying time with friends. Even walking to the local store becomes stressful. Things that should be normal parts of your life start turning into hell. So you begin avoiding those places. You take longer routes. You make excuses to calm your mind. That bully is anxiety. And panic attacks are the extra punches that come with it. So what are your options? You can tell your parents, which is actually a good idea, but depending on how they react, sometimes that can even make things worse. You could change schools or move somewhere else, but then your entire family's life changes because of the problem, your problem. Or you could follow the logic of Hollywood movies. You decide to fight the bully one day, hoping you will win, and that after that, he'll never bother you again. And maybe, as a bonus, you'll even win the most popular girl in the school. But the chances of that happening are about 1 in a billion. Roughly the same as the box office numbers of that blockbuster that sold you on the idea. Another option is to do nothing. Keep taking the hits, waiting for school to end, waiting for that phase of life to pass. But if we do nothing, we can't expect any improvement. If you keep avoiding the bully and taking the hits, those experiences will definitely leave consequences. On the other hand, if you try to confront the bully directly while still weak, you will most likely lose. And after that, you will probably get bullied even more. Your confidence will drop even lower. And every future encounter with that bully, or even the thought of meeting him, will create even more fear. What will your life look like? Will that affect your confidence? Of course it will. Now, are those really all the options for overcoming these kinds of challenges? Probably not. There are many variations. But there is one specific path that I prefer over all others. And for challenges like this, I believe is the best one, at least for me. The path is actually a process of gradually building yourself up. A real process of physical and mental strengthening. A process that also builds your confidence over time. A process that builds a solid foundation for any future growth. And the ultimate goal is to become physically and mentally stronger until the day comes when that bully just walks right by you and doesn't even notice you anymore. Or at least doesn't see you as a target anymore. Or maybe he just nods and says hello. He's still around, you still see him sometimes, but you feel nothing. Maybe the only thought that comes to your mind is, wow, I used to be afraid of that guy. Let's repeat this one more time. The bully is anxiety. Those anxious thoughts and worries that disturb your life. And the punches he throws are panic attacks. In this story, the role of parents is played by professionals, psychiatrists, psychologists, and also by close friends and people who truly care about you. They are there to help guide you through this process. So, what is the ultimate goal of this journey? To build resilience against our attackers. And that's something I will talking about in the future videos. So, stay with me and see you in the next video.